ladies and gentlemen, Suzanne Vega.
Thank you. She's a pornographer's dream, he said. I knew what he meant, and it made me imagine what kind of a dream he would have that hadn't been spent. Would he still dream of the thigh, the flesh up on high, what he saw so much of? Wouldn't he dream of the thing that he never could quite get the touch of? It's out of his hands, over his head, out of his reach, under this real life, hidden in veils, covered in silk, dreaming of what might be. It's out of his hands, over his head, out of his reach, under this real life, hidden in veils, dreaming of mystery. Page is still the rage with her legs and leather. She turns to tease the camera and please us at home, and we let her. Who's to know what she'll show of herself, in what measure, if what she reveals or what she conceals is the key to our pleasure. It's out of our hands, over our heads, out of our reach, under this real life, hidden in veils, covered in silk, dreaming of what might be. It's out of our hands, over our heads, out of our reach, under this real life, hidden in veils, dreaming of mystery. Under this real life, dreaming of what might be. Under this real life, dreaming of mystery. She's a pornographer's dream, he said. I knew what he meant, and it made me imagine what kind of a dream he would have. Thank you. Thank you very much. One thing I like to do is read biographies, and I was reading through the biography of Ava Gardner, and I pretty much got the first line of this next song from her biography. It's something that she said, she's a very witty way of expressing herself. So this is kind of a song about Frank Sinatra and Ava Gardner and what might have gone wrong in their relationship. And, you know, I guess I was thinking that the problems they have are not so different from the problems we sometimes have. And this is my little analysis. On the way to the B-Day is when the trouble used to start. It didn't mean she was in queen of the tinder box. That was his heart, her fire. His desire meant that everything must come undone, and so that it's not enough to be in love.
Not enough to be in love. Not enough to be in love.
He's so true, she is too. She says, I love you, Frank, and then they drank all night.
What a fight.
He says, it isn't me you're thinking of. She's cool, makes him cruel, and they needle till the jewels go raining down on the ground. She says, it's not enough to be in love.
Not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough to be in love.
Not enough to be.
Not enough. It's not enough to be in love.
They woke up, they broke up. They were so volatile, and all the while life passed, and it went fast. And yet they never could forget the chemistry, like you and me. It proved to keep them both apart for life, and so now we know that it's not enough to be in love.
Not enough to be in love. Not enough to be in love.
Not enough to be in love.
Not enough to be in love.
Thank you. This next song is a song from the new album, and it's called New York is a Woman. And we've been sort of playing a little game wherever we go in the world and figuring out, the city that we're in. Is it man, woman, child? Haven't quite figured out what Ann Arbor might be, but that's something you could think about. Here we go. New York City spread herself before you, with her bangles and her spangles and her stars. You were impressed with the city so undressed, and had to go out cruising all the bars. Your business trip extended through the weekend. Suburban boy here for your first time, from the 27th floor above the Midtown roar. You were startled by her beauty and her crime, and she's every girl you've seen in every movie. She's every dame you've ever known on late night TV. In her steam and steel is the passion you feel endlessly. New York is a woman, she'll make you cry, and to her you're just another guy. Look down and see her ruined places, smoke and ash still rising to the sky. She's happy that you're here, but when you disappear, she won't know that you're gone to say goodbye. New York is a woman, she'll make you cry, and to her you're just another guy. And she's every girl you've seen in every movie. She's every dame you've ever known on late night TV. And her steam and steel is the passion you feel desperately. New York is a woman, she'll make you cry. And to her, you're just another guy. Thank you very much. Thanks. So I'd like to introduce the musicians we have on stage with me now. This is Alison Cornell, playing everything. This is Mike Biseglia on bass. So thanks so much for coming out, and I'll see you over at the signing table. And I'd like to close with this song that you may remember. My name is Luka. I live on the second floor. I live upstairs from you. Yes, I think you've seen me before. If you hear something late at night, some kind of trouble, some kind of fight, just don't ask me what it was. Just don't ask me what it was. Just don't ask me what it was. I think it's 'cause I'm clumsy. I try not to talk too loud. Maybe it's because I'm crazy. I try not to act too proud. And they only hit until you cry. And after that, you don't ask why. You just don't argue anymore. Just don't argue anymore. Just don't argue anymore. Yes, I think I'm okay. I walked into the door again. Well, if you ask, that's what I'll say. It's not your business anyway. I guess I'd like to be alone, with nothing broken, nothing thrown. Just don't ask me how I am. Just don't ask me how I am. Just don't ask me how I am. My name is Luka. I live on the second floor. I live upstairs from you. Yes, I think you've seen me before. If you hear something late at night, some kind of trouble, some kind of fight, just don't ask me what it was. Just don't ask me what it was. Just don't ask me what it was. We only hit until you cry. And after that, you don't ask why. You just don't argue anymore. Just don't argue anymore. Just don't argue anymore. Thank you very much. Thanks so much for coming out, and thanks to Borders for inviting us to this event. Thank you.
The incomparable Suzanne Vega, ladies and gentlemen.
We're here today with Suzanne Vega, whose new album, Beauty and Crime, is out in stores right now. It's a beautiful mosaic of New York stories, of moments and moments in your life and stories from your personal life. I know that it came out of your reaction to 9/11, but if you look at the songs on the album, to a casual listener, there's no real strong necessarily connection to 9/11. There's a couple of songs, but these are really parts of your life and parts of your New York life in particular.
Yeah, well, it started with the idea, like, maybe I could write a couple of songs that would talk about 9/11. But then as I started to work on the songs, I realized they had a much wider lens than that. You know, a song like Edith Wharton's Figurines sort of talks about what women were like 100 years ago and comparing them to women today. So I felt that I didn't want to have too much 9/11. I mean, it was so intense living there as it was. I felt that I wanted to make it entertaining as well as talk about the social atmosphere. So it just ended up getting all kind of mixed up, which I think is okay.
Yeah, it's a great mix of little moments. I mean, from the Frank and Ava song about Frank Sinatra and Ava Gardner to the song that I love about your daughter and that moment in time, trying to capture a moment in your daughter's life growing up. These are very personal stories for you.
Well, some of them are, yeah. There's, I think, 2 songs that are particularly personal, and then some of the other ones are very, almost like snapshots or of a moment in time. The Zephyr and I is kind of it's about a personal conversation, but it's about a moment in time in the 70s that I was talking about. So it's a weird mixture of personal and also kind of objective little portraits.
And you spent your entire life, save maybe a year, I think, you were born somewhere else, but moved to New York. Your entire life has been spent in Manhattan and in that city.
Yeah.
So it's obviously something near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
A few years ago, it's been a while since your last album.
Yeah.
A few years ago, you found yourself in a just an uncomfortable spot. You had lost your record label. You had lost your manager. You had lost a husband, and worse, you had lost your brother in a tragic time in your life.
Yeah.
And yet you found your way out of that somehow and came out with this album. And I'm really interested to hear how you made that turn from being just in a place that was so negative and so down and found your way to this new sort of time in your life.
Yeah. Well, I did a lot of soul searching at that point, and I was sort of trying to figure out what my role in the world was at that moment. I felt it was too early to retire. I wasn't going to just suddenly stay home and live on what I had in my bank account, and it seemed a little too soon for that. So I just kind of tried to figure out, well, where am I needed, where am I wanted in the world, what amuses me, what gives me pleasure, what gives me joy. And so when I started working on this album, I was kind of amusing myself and amusing the engineer that I had hired to work with me. So I kind of experimented with tempos and rhythms, and I didn't want it to be too sad, but I didn't want it to be too frivolous either. So I kind of tried to find things that would bring me joy, and then just, one thing started to happen after the other, and it's been pretty great.
Was it a conscious effort to try to pull yourself out of something, or were you just sort of going to where your
No, it was conscious.
instinct?
I said at one point, I really have to find out what makes me happy, because I'm really pretty miserable right now. And I was getting feedback from people in New York. I was in a cab once, and he turned around and he said to me, if you want someone to fall in love with you, all you have to do is smile at them. And I thought, that's a really nice thing to say. And I said, thank you. And he goes, because the rest of the time you look like you want to murder someone. And I thought, wow, this is, if I'm looking most of the time like I want to murder somebody, I guess I better figure out, what's going to take me out of that mood. And kind of working on the music really helped.
Well, and you found Blue Note, which is a different type of label. I know that they're famously sort of turned Norah Jones into this massive star, but they're traditionally known as a jazz label. What was it about Blue Note that you were drawn to? Why them?
Well, first of all, I knew already that I wanted to make an album that had a classic sound to it, but that also sounded really modern. So I thought, well, Blue Note might be the right label, and there were a few labels that I was considering. They approached me. I asked them, the usual question, which is what people want to know, would I have to make jazz music if I was going to go with Blue Note? And they said no, that since the success of Norah Jones, they wanted a more singer-songwriter kind of artist, and something they considered classic pop. So I was comfortable with that, and I liked it that they really liked my retrospective, which had everything I've ever done on it, a variety of different kinds of music. So, and then once I met Bruce Lundvall, there was just a lovely kind of natural chemistry there, and he's been just so supportive. From the moment he heard the demos onward, he's just been great. So I found it was a really natural fit.
Yeah, and you have some great little surprises on this album. In addition to the beautiful songwriting, you've got Katie Tunstall singing backup on a couple of songs,
Yeah.
and your daughter Ruby sings backup on a couple of songs,
Yeah.
which I found really fun.
Yeah, it is fun. I mean, she's a good musician. She's very accomplished in some ways. She plays classical music, and she plays electric bass, and she sings. So, she's doing great. And
How old is she now?
she's just turned 13.
So she's watched this album. Basically, she's grown up with you working on this CD for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of true of her whole life, really. We're kind of usually working on something. And it was great working with KT. I wasn't there when she actually did the vocals, but I've met her since then, and she's just a great kind of down-to-earth girl and really positive, and I love what she did with the vocals here. And some of the other guests, like Lee Ronaldo, he's been someone I've wanted to work with for a long time from Sonic Youth. And I kept running into him all over New York, and we kept talking about working together, and finally it actually came to pass, so that was good.
So when you were young, when you were Ruby's age or a little older, you were at the New York School of Performing Arts.
Yeah.
Singing, or were you doing something
I was a
different?
dancer.
Oh, really?
That's where all my training was, in the dance department, and I didn't really know what I was doing as a musician. I was starting to play the guitar at that point, but it was all self-taught. So that's where all my training has been as a dancer.
And that's a school from Fame and all that. Were you there? That was after you were there.
They
after
made the movie
that.
after I graduated.
Yeah.
I found a lot of it was pretty true to life, actually.
Yeah.
It was very intense, very emotional, and people really did dance at lunchtime. Not on the cars, but inside the lunchrooms, and sometimes it would spill out into the street.
That's awesome. So you've always been sort of ahead of the curve when it comes to some of your music and the technology, and it's sort of pushing that sort of avant-garde place. Tom's Diner, you're credited with being involved with the creation of the MP3, and now you've done these 2 concerts now in Second Life, this virtual community.
Yeah.
And I think you're the first to have ever done that. And it seems like another trend-setting element for you. What drew you to Second Life and the whole virtual concert idea?
Well, first of all, I mean, I didn't know what it was when I was first approached by a radio company called, a radio show called The Infinite Mind, and they were hosting the show, and I've worked with them many times. So they wanted an artist that they could invite into Second Life, so they invited me. And it was from watching Ruby play video games that I knew what an avatar was. I mean, she knew what an avatar was. She's had 1 or 2 in some of these games. So she explained to me what it was. And my mother has also worked with computers her whole life. She was a computer systems analyst even as far back as the 70s. So I'm fairly comfortable with technology. So once they explained to me what it was, I thought the idea of having an avatar, having this representation on the computer was really fascinating. You can have this alter ego to kind of go out and tour for you, almost.
Yeah.
So that's been really fun. It's been a really fun world to explore.
It's anywhere, anytime. I mean, the idea of not having to have everyone in one place seems like a really forward-thinking touring idea.
Yeah, and also the idea that I might be able to draw people into a fantasy world that I've created, to say, for example, with the song The Queen and the Soldier, to create a castle, a palace where viewers and listeners could come in and actually walk down the hallway and see the red tapestries. To me, that's a really beautiful idea, and maybe sometime in the future I can get someone to build me a virtual castle that we can all play in and play with.
Or your favorite spots in New York.
Yeah.
I think Ludlow Street is where we're inviting people,
Right,
to join
that's
you
right.
on Ludlow Street.
Right, we have a virtual Ludlow Street with some of the real storefronts there, and
Yeah.
it's really a lot of fun.
It's incredible. So
Yeah.
you were the first, so you get to hang that on your resume
street,
now.
yeah.
Ludlow Street in particular is one of those songs that is really personal to you. It involves your brother and the street that he lived on.
Yeah.
And when you read those words, it obviously is a song with such deep meaning for you. You've obviously talked about it a lot now. It's been a few years since your brother died, but this is a beautiful tribute to him. Is it a street that you still like to go visit now, or does it feel entirely different now that he's gone?
It doesn't feel entirely different, and to be honest, I don't go down there that often. I mean, someone asked me, did I go down there a lot, because of what the chorus says when I go down to Ludlow Street. It's really more a place that I think about. I think about it a lot. I revisit it in my mind because I remember the moments that we had there together, and I remember the moments that I had there in the 80s. There's a lot of things that are like that, where I may not see it in the reality all the time because I have a busy life uptown, but I revisit it in my mind quite a bit.
I want to revisit just for a moment your sort of churn from that moment when you were really uncertain of where you were going to go, whether it was time for retirement, wondering if you were still going to stay in music. That to me is one of those stories that is truly an inspirational sort of centerpiece for this album, the CD. And there's so many folks out there that are stuck like that just can't get out.
Yeah.
And you talked about there was no real magic moment that made it happen. But what was it that kept drawing you out of that hole, that place where you just found yourself in like this terrible hole? I mean, to me, that's one of the things that I think people can take out of the CD when they listen to it. Knowing you came from there and basically recreated yourself.
Yeah. Well, there were a couple of things that really helped. And one thing is to be able to see a future for yourself. And to me, it really helps to say see it, to visualize it, to really imagine where you might be going, what you might be wanting to do, and see yourself doing it. And there's a million self-help books that will show you how to do that. And I really do believe that that's necessary. If you can see yourself doing it, you can actually do it. And the other thing I found really helpful was to make it concrete for myself, was to make 3 hours a day, 3 times a week, to work on the music. And I worked with an engineer who came to my house sort of like a trainer would. So I made a budget for myself. I said, this is what I'm going to spend on my demos. If I had a record deal, this is what I would be doing. I'm going to make myself do this. And I found that just the idea that he was coming to my house, even if I had one line, I remember the day that I started working on New York as a Woman. I had the first line, and that was all I had. I didn't have the chorus, I didn't have anything else but the first line and that little melody. I didn't even have the guitar part. So it was sort of putting pieces together day by day, even if it meant just finding a rhyme for a word or finding a melody or finding the chorus. And slowly, it was really very slowly, it felt really slowly to me, but that kind of breaking it down to something concrete that you can achieve every day, even no matter how little it seems to be. Both of those things I found really helped to kind of push things forward. And it's been just wonderful to feel everything kind of turning around and start to flow again in a really good way.
Well, the result is wonderful.
Thank you.
And I thank you so much for coming to perform today. It's going to be a great show. Everyone here is really excited, and thanks for talking to us today.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm Suzanne Vega, and we're going to be looking at some of my favorite places in New York City. Where should we start? One place I'll point out, the place when I first came to New York City, I lived right over here on East 109th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenues. So, just for reference. But let's make our way over here to the Upper West Side. I wanted to point out the Hungarian Pastry Shop, which is on Amsterdam Avenue. It's a great place to have Hungarian pastry, and it's a place that the local kids go to study and think about their term papers, which is what I used to do. And it's right by the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, the cathedral in Tom's Diner, where I really did have a midnight picnic once. See where it says Cathedral Parkway? It's sort of near there on 112. There it is. There's the cathedral right here. So both of those things take place in that area right there. If you're feeling cultural, you can go to the Upper East Side and you can go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art and see their Costume Institute, which is always beautiful and always interesting. One place I found recently is in Central Park. There's all these beautiful little places right inside of Central Park. And the one I wanted to show you is the Shakespeare Garden. And it's this beautiful little garden that has all of these plants and flowers that are mentioned in Shakespeare's plays. And it's right near Belvedere Castle, which is right over here.
It's always nice to see you, says the man behind the counter to the woman who has come in. She is shaking her umbrella, and I look the other way as they...
One thing I've always wanted to talk about and to show to someone or to write about is the number 5 bus route in New York City. It's just really the most beautiful little bus route you could take, and so I'm really tickled to be able to point it out to you. It goes down Riverside Park. That's usually about where I get it, about here. It goes down here, swings over, then it goes to Broadway, it goes down here, and it goes down 5th Avenue. So you pass Tiffany's, and then it goes down to Washington Square. So it goes all the way down to Greenwich Village. So if you have the time and you find yourself in that neighborhood, you should get on the number 5 bus because it's sort of like almost like the movies.
And I'm turning to the horoscope and looking for the funnies when I'm feeling someone watching me, and so I raise my head.
Oh, I should point out the Cornelia Street Cafe, which is on Cornelia Street. And Cornelia Street is a tiny little one-block street. And the Cornelia Street Cafe has been there for 30 years. And they have jazz and they have things to eat. And I still perform there from time to time. It's one of the places where I got my start. And that's down in Greenwich Village. We have Tea and Sympathy, if you want a cup of tea and you want a scone or you want something like that. If you want to see a fabulous teapot collection, you can go to Tea and Sympathy, which is on Greenwich Avenue. And it's just a really cute little place if you've been walking around and you're tired. So these are just a few of the little corners in New York that I've come to love over the years.
There's a woman on the outside looking inside. Does she see me? No, she does not really see me, 'cause she sees her own reflection. And I'm trying not to notice that she's hitching up her skirt, and while she's straightening her stock.
Stephanie and Arthur on your way, or where are you off to now?
We're going to New York for about a day, and then we go to Europe on Thursday.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I look forward to seeing you again in September.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Da, 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 da.